think it's horrible that we're over policed in communities that are just minding our own business typically. But when you go across to say any of the white neighborhoods, it's not over policed. So of course, when you're looking for something, you're going to find more, right? It's just the nature of the equation. And I feel like it's just, again, it's unfair. And these policies and laws and everything have been set up for one group of people to always be I don't want to call it success, but it's like supported. It's like, it's their world, and we're over here living this ultra reality trying to fit in all the time. And it's two different realities, right? Because who's created that, those structures? But Tia, I wanted to ask you another question. So that's my stance on that. I think it's awful. But when we think about Reformation, because we can divest, that's great, but the reality is the powers that be, I would like to see at least some change, right? Like 4 years are going to go by rather quickly in the Kamala Harris and Biden administration. If they can move the needle just a little bit, what would you like to see them do as far as police reformation?
I think it's an interesting question. I don't believe that reform is the road for us to go down, only because it's shown itself not to work. When we talk about police reform, people are always talking about giving the police a budget. Again, you can look it up. I'll give Brian the link to share the police calculator. So we're already giving law enforcement, 20 and 30% of our budget. Some areas it's even more than that. And then we say, well, we're going to give you some more money for training, more money for evaluation, more money for you to quote unquote fix or make yourself better. But how can you correct your own self when your institution has its roots in corruption, has its roots in, again, white supremacy, and has its roots in, like you're describing, Azra, the police are a structure of the state in order to protect and preserve a way of life for a certain group of people, and then to criminalize, to repress, to patrol and control another group of people. And so if you're white and you're wealthy, you can look at police as something that is not doing their job quite right because they're killing people. But if you're a Black person, then I can look at police the way that I do look at police, as a force that is dangerous and life-threatening. So in what way can that be reformed? We don't need to reform the police. We need to reform our society. We need to think differently about what it means to keep people safe. We need to think differently about the ways that we invest our time and our resources in keeping people safe and healthy and well and taken care of. If we look at the statistics around why people, commit certain crimes, the way to fix that is not to make the police better, right, at catching people doing those crimes. Because once a crime has been committed, a crime has already been committed. Harm has already been done. Why are we not looking at investing into the resources, into the services, into the structures, into the healing and other necessary things at the root cause of harm being done in our communities? Because ask yourself, in what ways do the police prevent harm? They don't. By the time you call a police officer, harm has already been done, and there is no structure that the police have or that the state has to correct the harm in your community or to heal the harm that has taken place. It just literally doesn't exist. There is no 911 for me to call to help fix the trauma that I've experienced. There's only the resource for me to call for somebody to be punished, to be hurt, to be removed.
So archaic and medieval, right? Like,
right.
It's just short of, what is it? Quartering, when they put the horses and they pull people apart.
Drawn and quartered. Yeah,
drawn and quartered. You know what I mean? I don't know if we have come to the place where we've conceptualized how crude policing in the idea of it. The way you just described it, I think is fitting. They come after the fact when it's over.
It's over.
Right.
I have another concept though. So when I'm talking about infrastructure being changed, Tia, and Brian, what are your thoughts though, about, because I'm really big about them at least creating these bans. And you know how we talk about like law reform happening, like having them be accountable, having them be actually responsible for not allowed to, what's the word I'm looking for, the chokehold, like anything that's gonna like inhibit life from being able to live, right? If they're like in a position where they're getting to do what they did to George Floyd and be okay with it and be smug about it, how is that okay? Like, I think there should be bans on that. What are your thoughts?
Yes, so I think that police and law enforcement in the state understand the difference between using deadly force and using other types of force. There are a lot of police reform movements around raising the bar on when a police officer is allowed to use deadly force, doing things like you said, like modifying, what types of holds they're allowed to use and things like that. However, they know these things. The individual police officer in the situation and interaction is using their discretion on what type of force that they use, how they engage people, and what course of action they take. The problem, and the reason why I say the police cannot be reformed, is that their decision making, when they look you in the eye and decide whether or not you are a person worthy of their respect, is completely subjective, and it is usually in the service of white supremacy, no matter the race of the police officer. So I can say, oh, you know that you're not allowed to use this deadly chokehold. Doesn't matter. Chokehold had been banned in New York when Eric Garner was killed. They're using their discretion, and we're talking about individuals. We're talking about people raised up in this white supremacist capitalist patriarchy that we live in. Yeah. And we're going to ask them to get retrained on a different guidelines. Number one, many police officers who are sworn to protect and serve, if we tell them that they can't use deadly force at their discretion, and that there's going to be a higher level of accountability around it, many of them won't be police officers anymore, which I think is good. How many police do we need, right?
Maybe they don't need to. Qualified immunity needs to go away.
Right? But what's going to happen is defend police are going to say, oh, well, that's a problem. We want our police to think that we want to have confidence in them. We want them to feel like they can do their jobs. They want to make it home at night. Don't we all need to be making it home at night? I think that the intricacies of police reform we've seen what comes of that. Phoenix PD is an excellent example. So maybe 2015, 16, somewhere in there, there was a lot of really great momentum after the really tragic killings of Michelle Couchot and Remain Brisbane. So that's 2012, 2013, 2014. Phoenix PD, we reading them the riot act. There's protests at the city council meetings. We're disrupting. We're protesting at the police department. Nobody had ever protested at the actual police department until we organized a protest with Remain Brisbane's family. They're so scared. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys are protesting at the police department building. They make a commitment to, reevaluate their procedures and do a training. They did not get a bid on the training. They gave the contract to an ASU professor named Matthew Whitaker. There was a huge scandal because he used, I guess, some slides from another police department that either he had worked with or like gotten the resource from, something of that nature. Huge scandal. That's what Phoenix PD, that's how much they thought about, how seriously to take retraining their police force.
What a coincidence that of the timing of that scandal, right?
Right.
That's another story, right?
Right. Like that's how invested they were in really taking it seriously, and like we're really going to do everything we can. This is after months and weeks of sitting in everybody's face and coming to Black churches and having, meetings with Black leaders to talk about, we really want to restore trust with our community. What is it that we can do? We want to show that we're committed. You're not committed. You do not think that you've done anything wrong. You think me protesting is the part that's wrong. You think us questioning you is the part that's wrong. How is it that we should be willing to trust you when we're telling you that you are patrolling brutalizing and murdering our communities, and you want to talk about trust. But then when I say you should not be killing unarmed people, well, I can't make that promise to you. I heard the police chief tell me that to my face. So what is that we have to discuss?
Yeah,
it's funny that you mentioned something like that.
You said everything, right?
Because under I believe the same, I don't know if it's the same police chief, but same police department, that police have been found to be rewarding each other with coins.
Yeah, they a gang.
Means to say again?
I said they're a gang. They have a ritual.
They have a ritual, right? But yet that's not being investigated externally. You know what I mean? That's not being uprooted with the most extreme measures because of the violation of not just public trust, right? Because that's the thing that people are concerned about on the administrative level.
Right.
People are losing their lives, okay? And I don't think that's the part that the sense of urgency isn't there for that. And what's also unfortunate is the fact that, and this is to a point that you brought up earlier, is that when you focus 30% or 25% of a budget for a community that doesn't have adequate access to hospital or proper health care, like you really are saying two things on both ends. You're saying, A, we're gonna put a lot of police in this area with guns, and we're not gonna give them any concern for them upholding the respect for human life, number one.
Right.
And number two, the fact that you don't have adequate healthcare means that either the police might find you and in some ways create harm in your life, and you won't have enough in terms of healthcare resources, whether it be mental health or any other type of injury for that community. And to me, like when you think about liberation, you can't be free under those circumstances at all.
Exactly. It's not designed for us to be free under those circumstances. It's not designed for that. Like, we have to really question, and I know it's scary to people because we get indoctrinated with this idea that the police are the ones that keep you safe, and they protect and they serve, and these are the people that you're supposed to call for when you need help. But nobody's pointing out the fact that you're gonna live in a community that doesn't have access to clean water. You're not gonna have access to healthcare. You're not gonna have access to, parks and recreation. You're not gonna be living in a family that makes the living wage enough to have a well-balanced life, on top of the other stress factors that we're gonna place around you, including the police patrolling your neighborhood and harassing you when they feel like it.
Yeah, there's so much that we have to consider in terms of, the popularization of Black Lives Matter, and how, everyone kind of throws it around as as something that's trendy. And I think the concern is that there are real issues that need to become more of the trend and more of the conversation that support you saying Black Lives Matter, right? Yeah. And people taking up that banner as part of their cause to say, you know what? I want to find a way to have an impact when it comes to the healthcare systems that are in our Black and brown communities. I want to make sure I improve that, right? Take that on. I want to make sure that I improve the quality of food that is in a particular area. I'm taking that on because I believe Black Lives Matter. I'm taking on the fact that education in these areas is not what it should be. I'm taking that on because I believe Black Lives Matter. And it has to be broken down into that versus I'm in verbal solidarity with you.
Or if I'm in verbal solidarity and I'm going to do the opposite.
Right, exactly.
So I feel like this is the thing about Black Lives Matter as a slogan, as a hashtag, as a very, as a phrase. It has a lot of weight and it has a lot of power, but it also has been very revealing, over the last 7 years to see, in how many ways it's so easy for somebody to say something out of their mouth. My kind of I won't say it's my favorite thing to do. One of the things that I really like to do is when an organization or a company makes a Black Lives Matter statement, to look at the comments underneath their statement, because without fail, there's like an employee or a customer or somebody who's pulling out receipts about how Black Lives Matter do not matter here. What are you talking about?
Right. We need to follow that, right? Follow that trail, right?
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. Let's see the receipts.
Right. Let me see your receipts. Like there's some restaurant in Tempe. I was really cracking up because this is the thing about the same way that social media helped Black Lives Matter become an international phenomenon is the same way that anything catchy and like flashy and sexy and like on trend and like just really being performative about things is, you know, it's the same conditions. So I'm reaching all over the world with this tweet, with this hashtag, and also, you know, anybody can say anything on the hashtag and on their social media account. There's a restaurant in Tempe. They post there like, oh, you know, the little heartfelt messages everybody was doing on Instagram last year. I don't know why, who told them to do this. I do not know. So there's like 3 or 4 comments underneath about, I think one was from like a former employee, a couple more were from like different customers who had been, you know, felt discriminated against by that same restaurant. No replies from the restaurant. No, so there's not even a response, accountability around it. And also I'm like, to your point, Brian, you're a restaurant. So you feel like it's good for your brand to say Black Lives Matter because the people who patronize your establishment are gonna feel good about the fact that I'm supporting a company that is socially conscious and aware, right? Again, all performative. Because in order to have a restaurant, you have to have access to capital, you have to have probably access to credit, you have to have the ability and the opportunity to have the time and energy and space to think and create. You have to have enough wherewithal to be able to employ other people. There are several levels of, you know, kind of permits and interaction.
You're organizing.
Right. And so the fact that it was so in the same hour that you post that statement, that 2 or 3 people can point out very specific and blatant ways that you have not upheld Black Lives Matter, we know for sure that the people or the institutions behind the apparatus and the institution of your restaurant doesn't have anything to do with supporting Black lives, because you as you're not living a demonstration of that. It's too easy for people to say Black Lives Matter and not question whether or not they actually have made any type of material commitment to addressing structural racism, have not even acknowledged that structural racism is a thing. And we need to get beyond the fact that when Black Lives Matter first started, just saying it was already offensive. And it was really like, people were not rocking with it like people are now. People are like, oh, Black Lives Matter's done all of this and that. I'm like, I don't know what y'all talk about. When it first started, people were upset and offended. Okay, just by
Black Power. You might as well say Black Power. You might have said Black Panther. You might have said Black Panther.
You might as well say, you know, power only. You know, F Whitey killed the white people. You would have thought that's what we were saying.
Nat Turner. Just go ahead and say Nat Turner.
Right. We might as well have been saying that. Right. So, you know, George Floyd happens and is murdered by the police in front of all of these people. And everybody's at home under COVID restrictions. And, you know, you can't turn away. You can't look away. You're not as distracted as usual. And also, I think there was a sense of like, oh my gosh, this is still happening. Yeah, it didn't ever not stop.
It never went away.
It never went away.
Right.
It literally never went away. And it will not and it cannot go away until we get to the root and also address and clean up those roots. Phoenix PD there's a police union, plea association. And when Black Lives Matter first started getting really hot, they had like a special meeting with the NAACP and plea. And again, and this is, a lot of the reasons why I was in no rush to continue to stay and organize in Arizona has to do with these great special meetings that everybody wants to have with the police. And so I'm a very radical
respectability meeting with the police. The one that is not anti-establishment, but hey, we want to work with you.
We want to work with you
to help you continue to oppress us.
In my politics, that is skipping a whole step. To me, the way that I was raised, and it's probably coming from growing up in a segregated neighborhood, Black people need to have self-determination first. Before I can negotiate or have any type of conversation with any other entity, I need to be coming from a place of power. I need to be organized. I need to have political alignment around my objectives first. Listen, NAACP, we're gonna have a meeting with the police, Phoenix police, Chandler police, Scottsdale police. I'm looking at everybody like, why are we talking to the cops? The cops are the problem. We need to talk to one another first.
Come on now.
Before we talk to the cops.
Marcus Garvey was saying that like way back when. You know what I mean?
That is why they deported him. If we as Black people are not on the same page first, why is it that we're here to talk? We're going to talk to the cops? Because guess what? The cops are going to say the same thing every time. We need more trust. You need to comply. You need to be more informed. You need to come on a ride along so you can understand where we're coming from. All of these things. At no point in time do they say what they're going to do better.
They're going to take pictures with people.
Yeah, they're going to take pictures.
They're going to spy.
They want you to apply to be a cop.
Right. They're going to hug some people. Somebody might cry.
Right. You know definitely somebody's going to cry. Then they're going to come and they want to do their community relations stuff where we're going to pass out hot dogs and we're going to have a basketball game with the cops. All of these things. Until Black people have the power of self-determination, we're always going to have these problems because somebody else is always determining the rules of engagement with us. And Black power and Black sovereignty and self-determination is really, really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. To not us, but to them.
Yeah, to them. To us, it can only improve our position in society. And that's why saying the word Black first is the first thing that scares people because it's like, oh my gosh, are y'all gonna organize? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Really interesting because what people fail to understand is like, I really feel that they fail to understand this, that there is a white America and a Black America. And I think even immigrant populations struggle with that understanding because they don't get it. They don't understand when they're coming here, what are they striving to become? They're not striving to become Black America.
Right.
They're programmed to want to be white America. So what you see overall is this assimilation process happening all by itself, depending on the socioeconomics of that immigrant population. So when you talk about Black and Brown, we have a lot of Black and Brown people that are immigrants to this country, and they don't understand all of the historical fabric, right, of what has occurred. There's two different Americas, and until we get to that, the bottom line to that, and that is root, I think what you're saying is really idealistic. I'm unfortunately a bit of a realist because I've worked and I've seen how these things work, and it cannot happen alone. We need coalitions, we need serious funding, we need people who are in power, like you said. So I get discouraged when I hear radical movement, although radical movement is what we need. I'm a little bit of a skeptic because it's like Rome wasn't built in a day. We have to start chipping away at this system, right? Like you can't just blow it up.
Or you can.
I've never seen America blow anything up. Loved Mr. Obama, but look what he did to healthcare. It was not a blow up.
Right. I mean, that's an example, right? And Tia, I'll let you respond to that. But one thing I want to say before you do is the fact that why are we so afraid to totally shift away from something when we've done it in the past, right? We've done it and we've taken drastic measures in the past because we felt we were in a moment of crisis, right? We said no more people should die like this. We have to totally turn away from this. Whereas when Black people die, it's not a situation of crisis in the country, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Right. And what I'm saying is more or less reform doesn't meet the standard of we're in a crisis. Reform means a couple things went bad, might have been a few misunderstandings, and we gotta fix something else, right?
When it becomes a crisis, Brian, when it's the white people dying.
White people do die though. White people,
but not at the rate, right?
White people aren't gonna die at that rate because it's a white country.
But so, just wait. Law enforcement gets into being of color, right? When you've got masses of people who are of color,
it's not gonna happen because we live in a white supremacist country. Yeah. So the last time that cops in America were killing and brutalizing white people was when we had like the hippie movement and the counterculture movement in the 60s. And
that's true. The
clashes in the streets, you know, white people were blowing up banks to protest the war. Love this whole time period. White people were like, F America, we're taking the empire down. Right. And very quickly, the government shifted resources and time and energy, both to like squelch dissent, right, and protest, and also to make it so that all of the white hippie folks who were out here bombing things and protesting, what did they do? Gave them jobs, okay, put them in school, gave them scholarships. They're like, look, these people need something to do. We've got to get them off of the street. We've got to get them out of these, you know, radicalized postures. They did not let it continue for long because it threatens our stability. It doesn't threaten the stability of America to kill Black people every day because they do it every single day. I don't disagree that we need a spectrum of efforts. What I disagree on is that we all need to be working for police reform because there are already people whose responsibility it is to run the government, who are elected to represent the people. Police are already employed as police officers. Where is their leadership? Why is it that you want to sit and have a town hall with me and like Brian said, you want to cry and you want to hug and all these other things to address a problem that you know is a problem?
Right.
You do not need my energy to do that.
Right.
You do not need the masses of people's energy and attention to fix a problem that you know is a problem.
What am I paying you for? Why am I giving you 25% of my community's budget if now I got to take time out of my schedule to coddle you and explain what you're doing wrong? You know what you're doing wrong. You're actually analyzing this stuff yourself.
Right.
And you're okay with it.
And then what you want is more money. You want to make me think that you're doing your best when you're not doing your best because you continue to kill people, continue to brutalize people. There's so many incidences, even just over the last year, just in Phoenix alone, of police just being really egregious and terrible to Black people just because they're Black. So you don't need my help for that. Massive movements of people trying to figure out our own issues and taking care of the issues that we have in our community. Our energies do need to be towards our health. Our energies do need to be towards our, economic stability and self-sufficiency. Our energies do need to be towards protecting ourselves. And yes, and that includes protecting ourselves from the police. I like demonstrations and protesting because I think you need to put pressure on the state. But I like mutual aid a little bit more.
Yeah,
I like community self-defense even more than that. It's like, you know what? Actually, do not come over here. City of Guadalupe is a great example. Guadalupe was like, look, we don't want the sheriff over here. What? No. Do not patrol our streets. Do not come over here and let me call you. I think that the spectrum of activities that need to happen is a spectrum of activities that need to happen. And, we want to take Black liberation for an example. During enslavement, there were the people who were on the plantations and doing the resistance the way that they were. There are people who were on the plantations like, I'm going to get my education. If I have the opportunity to purchase my freedom, I'm going to work really hard to make sure that I do that. And then there were the people who were the Maroons, who were like on, the very first stop that this boat makes. I'm getting the hell out of here. Yep. And I will cut everybody's head off. I will blow up this ship. I will capsize this ship. To me, both are very valid.
Yes.
We need both, and we all descend from the people who survived from all of those different types of efforts to this day, and we all have to take up our position where we're going to.
Right. So defund and reform can coexist. We can do things at the same time.
Otherwise, we're going to have the Stonewall Rebellion all over again.
Which
and it might take that.
It comes down to that. Because
right?
At the end of the day,
in the process.
Right. They would be lucky if we don't occupy City Hall and say, you're not about this business. You're actually not going to get any business done today. And until we say, right? They're lucky that hasn't happened yet.
Come on. Because we're well within our rights at this point.
Right.
A lot of people have died egregiously on video.
On video.
I don't know what you got to do. Does somebody have to actually stand there and see the police kill somebody recklessly and then, show
the Axon cameras and all the body wear that they wear, it's supposed to create transparency. Do you know how much footage we don't see on a regular basis? Because it's not available.
They don't want to. That's the thing. The things that they could do. Let me be transparent. Let me be accountable. Let me make a public database that's searchable. They use that footage to prosecute people. That's
real. Tia, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing just so much insight. Before we actually let you go, can you please tell us how we can find you, how we can support you, any projects that you have coming up next where we can kind of make sure that our audience is a part of it?
Yes. So first of all, I've enjoyed this conversation. This is my favorite thing to do, is talk about, what's going on with Black people and just like discuss and debate and all these good things. So folks can find me at tiaoso.net. That's my website. It should have links to my Twitter and my Instagram on there. Some of the projects that I have coming up, I can't share too much about right now, but it's going to be about Black people in the diaspora and getting...
It'll be updated on your website and your Instagram, so if we follow you...
Updating, yeah. If you follow me, you're going to get all the good updates about the diaspora and getting free from even like ideas about what it means to be Black and who is and who's not Black and reparations and things like that.
Come on now. That's another discussion we need to have with you, because that is starting to heat up right now with ADOS, but that's a different conversation altogether.
Bring me back on for the ADOS conversation and we can really get into it.
For sure.
It's been a pleasure meeting you. I have enjoyed our conversations so much, and to know someone like-minded and having this robust conversation is awesome. So thank you for your time. I'm so happy that we met.
Me too, and thank y'all for hosting this show and talking about these things in Arizona, because it's necessary and we really need it. And also just want to express solidarity with all of the protesters and the organizers and Mass Lib AZ, and everybody doing work around the Black, organizing and resistance here in Arizona, because I know it's not easy.
For sure. But we're gonna keep that spirit alive, through the commentary, and make sure people stay informed. And we hope that everyone stays tuned to Apolitical, because we want to have more conversations like this and keep people on the forefront of the information that's necessary in order to hold the state accountable, but also to be informed and be the type of citizen that allows you to be involved in the change that we know everyone wants to be in shaping the future. Thanks for joining us here at Apolitical, and we hope to see you soon.